What if I told you we could understand global conflict through thermodynamics? Yeah, I know it sounds crazy. Can a single mathematical formula really give us a blueprint for peace in a world that feels like it's constantly on fire? Well, today we're going to dive into a pretty radical idea that says yes, it can. And we're going to put it to the test against a scenario that feels like it was ripped straight from tomorrow's headlines.
These are the kinds of words that start wars. This isn't just some abstract political talk. This is the language of imminent, real-world conflict. The stakes really don't get any higher than this.
And there it is, the flashpoint. A specific day, a specific operation. A massive offensive kicks off, and just like that, a conflict that's been simmering for decades boils over, pulling the world into a brand new and, frankly, terrifying chapter.
So what does a war like this even look like today? Well, it's not just about bombs and missiles anymore. Not by a long shot. This is a battle fought on every single front, all at the same time. A war that's waged with lines of code just as much as it is with explosives. I mean, just look at the sheer chaos on the modern battlefield. On one hand, you have the things we expect. Missiles hitting cities, and even reports that Iran's supreme leader was killed. But at the exact same time, look at this other stuff. A popular prayer app gets hacked to spread propaganda. The entire country of Iran is knocked offline, and the US later confirms, yep, that was us. This isn't just a war between armies anymore. It's a war on information, on infrastructure, and on belief itself.
And right in the middle of all that chaos, we're going to pivot to a place of pure order and logic, mathematics. There's this book, Blueprint for Harmony, and it makes a wild claim that a formula from biology, one that explains how species cooperate in nature, can also explain human conflict. It's a jarring shift, I know, but it might just hold the key to understanding all of this.
And this is it, the big one, the Modified Energetic Lotka-Volterra equation, or MELV for short. Now look, I get it looks intimidating, but please stay with me, because the idea behind it is way simpler than you'd think. It basically says that conflict isn't just random chaos, it's a system. And that system follows predictable rules all based on one thing, finding the most energy-efficient path. That's really the core of it. The universe just naturally wants to settle into the most stable, lowest energy state it can find.
Okay, so let's break this thing down. To really get how it works, we've got to understand each piece of the puzzle. Each of these little symbols tells a part of the story of why groups either work together or tear each other apart. First up is I, the interaction coefficient. The easiest way to think about this is like a conflict meter. It's just a number that measures how much energy it costs for two groups to interact with each other. Is it a total waste of energy, or is it actually efficient and maybe even beneficial? So the magic number here is 1. If that interaction cost, our I, is greater than 1, you get conflict. It's just too energetically expensive, like two wolf packs fighting over the same territory. But when that number drops below 1, the whole game flips. Suddenly, cooperation becomes the path of least resistance. It's just less work, less energy, to cooperate with the other group than it is to fight them. And nature, according to this equation, always takes the smarter, more stable path.
Okay, next up is beta. This one's all about compatibility. Basically, how well do the goals, the institutions, or just the fundamental ways of life of two groups align? The higher the compatibility, the more fertile the ground is for cooperation to sprout. Then we've got phi, which you can think of as institutional maturity, or maybe a better word is wisdom. Has a society built stable systems? Has it learned from its past mistakes? A mature system, where phi is high, is one that's built for the long haul. It doesn't waste energy on petty short-term fights.
And that brings us to epsilon. This is the really unique one. This is the human factor. It's our consciousness. It's our ability to learn, to be self-aware, and to actually intentionally design systems that foster cooperation. You could almost call it a cheat code that lets us speedrun the transition from conflict to harmony. And this right here shows you just how powerful these forces are. When researchers ran thousands of computer simulations, over 10,000 of them, of these digital ecosystems, a whopping 78% of them just figured it out. They spontaneously evolved into stable, cooperative states. The math seems to show that nature doesn't just like harmony, it's practically a law of physics. Cooperation is the default setting. All right, so that's the theory. Now it's time for the real test. Let's take this blueprint, this equation, and lay it right on top of the chaos we started with, the 2026 Iran crisis. And when you do that, Wow. The diagnosis is just stark. The interaction cost I is through the roof. It's active warfare. Compatibility and maturity, beta and phi, they're at rock bottom after decades of hostility. But here's the part that gives me chills. Look at epsilon, our consciousness factor. It's high. But instead of accelerating everyone towards peace, all that human intelligence and creativity is being weaponized to find faster, smarter, more devastating ways to fight.
And that right there leads us to what might be the most powerful and maybe the most sobering insight from this whole framework. Consciousness is a double-edged sword.
So, human culture has an incredibly high epsilon value. That means we can learn and adapt maybe 1,000 times faster than slow, plodding biological evolution. We basically have a superpower, but, and this is the huge, crucial catch, that superpower is just an accelerator. It's a gas pedal, but it's not a steering wheel. If the rest of our system, our compatibility on our institutions, is already pointed towards a cliff, our consciousness just helps us drive off it that much faster.
So here's the bottom line. Awareness on its own is not enough. Consciousness is the catalyst. It's the spark. But if the underlying chemistry, the actual structures of our societies is primed for an explosion, then a spark is just going to set it off. We have to consciously and deliberately design the conditions for peace. Which leaves us with this one final, really fundamental question. The math is pretty clear. The universe, it seems, bends toward harmony because it's simply the most efficient way to be. The blueprint is right there. But knowing the path exists and having the collective will to actually build it, well, those are two very, very different things. The math shows us the way, but the choice, in the end, is all ours.